On April 14th, 1912, RMS Titanic struck an iceberg while steaming through the North Atlantic Ocean on her maiden voyage, and sank just shy of 3 hours later. Since then, she has captivated the world, and her story has been retold many times, and is one of the most widely known stories of all time. But another ship was lost around the same time, and has been almost completely forgotten. A couple of weeks ago now, I briefly mentioned the cargo ship SS Augsburg while discussing another ship of the same name. This was a cargo steamship that disappeared without a trace in the North Atlantic Ocean in 1912, only 2 months before the Titanic would sink in the North Atlantic Ocean as well. Could the same tragic fate have befallen them, or did something different cause this ship to vanish into thin air? Why did Titanic get remembered, but this ship didn't? Today, I'm going to make good on my promise to tell the story of this ship, and we are going to have a look at the unsolved mystery of the SS Augsburg, a ship which disappeared without a trace. It's not a long story, but it is an eerie unsolved mystery, made all the more so by our lack of answers. All that was found was empty ocean. This is the SS Augsburg and her story. To start off the story, we have to go back to the beginning. Augsburg was ordered back in mid-October of 1895 by the German-Australian Steamship Company, or DADG. It placed the order for the ship at the Charles Connell and Company of Scotstoun on the River Clyde in Glasgow. Yard number 226 was her birthplace, and she was launched April 18th, 1896, and given the name Augsburg. She was completed on June 27th of the same year. Her code letters were RKLN, and this girl was 380 feet long, her beam was 47 feet rounded up, and her depth was 20 feet rounded down. She displaced 4,287 gross registered tons, had a single screw, a 3-cylinder triple expansion engine, and could achieve a speed of 11 knots. Finally, she was registered in Hamburg. The cargo ship had a crew of 39. For the next several years, Augsburg had a fruitful career, carrying cargo that was more or less uneventful. She braved the hazards of the North Atlantic Ocean and carried cargo back and forth across it. Her story from these early days is not readily recorded. However, on December 16th, 1911, 5 years to the day before another ship we've talked about, the Mount Temple, sank, just felt like mentioning that, she left Hamburg. Her captain was Wilhelm Winter from Hamburg. She reached New York in early January 1912 and spent 4 weeks there. She was loaded with cargo consisting of kerosene and petroleum, along with other cargo, and left again on February 2nd, 1912, with either 37 or 39 crew members on board her. A February 3rd newspaper from the New York Tribune reported her departure in their Marine Intelligence section. As far as we know, the ship was never seen again, not even by a passing vessel. She was bound for Durban, and somewhere along that voyage from New York, she vanished off the face of the earth. Her arrival date of March 5th came, and when it did, there was no sign of her. Now, at first, most people wouldn't have been too worried. Ships were late all the time back then. Engines failing were not uncommon. But eventually she was reported as overdue. It's a tale we've heard many times before, Waratah probably being the best example, which vanished in the same area. Light cruiser SS Bremen set out to look for her. The Bremen was a ship that served the Royal Navy in the early 1900s and had been ordered back in 1898, and would later be sunk in World War I, another story I might cover in the future. Bremen docked briefly in Bermuda before carrying on with her hunt for the ship, but come April, no trace of the Augsburg was found. Even as the Titanic was sinking hundreds of miles to the north, the search was ongoing for the SS Augsburg. On April 13th, the Marconi Wireless Company stationed at Cape Ray signaled the passenger liner Yeparanga to help with the search. On April 20th, another cargo ship called the Caledonia arrived in Norfolk and was sent a telegram to search as well, and she headed out to sea 2 days later. Another DADG ship, the Magdeburg, which had arrived in New York on the same day as her fellow DADG ship Augsburg, left to search too, following Augsburg's route to Durban. On this search, she encountered a severe storm which cleared after about a day, and there was fear that Augsburg had foundered in a storm or in that very storm if she was still afloat up to that point. The fear was very real. There were also false reports starting to come in of Augsburg being sighted floating, but no trace was ever found. She was gone. The Sun reported, "The hunt for the Augsburg. Caledonia ordered to search the Atlantic for crippled steamer. Under hurried orders from Hamburg, the Hamburg American liner Caledonia will leave tomorrow morning to search for the German steamer Augsburg, which was reported broken down and adrift in the Atlantic a few days ago. A cablegram ordering the Caledonia to search for the Augsburg was received by Captain Roll upon his arrival from Veracruz yesterday for bunker coal. Following the receipt of the cable, Captain Rowell gave orders that all the coal that his vessel would carry with safety be put on board, as he expects to make a thorough search." This paper also reported that the steamer Augsburg was broken down and drifting at latitude 38 degrees north, longitude 58 degrees west, adding that she had lost a propeller. I don't know where they got those coordinates. If you plug them into Google Maps, it's in the middle of the North Atlantic Ocean. It seems like they were just making up a position for the ship. As far as I can tell, there was no sighting of her in the area around this time. So what happened? A proposed explanation many support is that the ship sank in a storm, perhaps one that struck after she left, or the one that struck a month later if she was indeed broken down and adrift. I could not find any source on why the paper printed that the propeller was theorized to be lost, but perhaps there was some truth to that, and she drifted for a month before sinking in a storm. There seemed to be a lot of hope that the ship was afloat until that storm hit in April. Perhaps the storm overwhelmed the ship, causing her to roll over and go under, lost to the depths of the ocean. Given the time of year and the sheer number of icebergs in the North Atlantic Ocean that year, she might have run into an iceberg which had drifted far south. Iceberg collisions have sunk far more ships than the Titanic, and depending on the type of collision this theoretical event dealt to the ship, she might have sank slowly or very quickly. Also, the cargo she was carrying is something to consider. Petroleum is highly flammable and combustible, and kerosene being in the vicinity would not help anything either if there was even a single spark. What if a fire broke out on board the ship which sank her, or even caused a sudden explosion that destroyed the ship instantly and caused it to sink almost instantly? The ocean is big, and the fact no debris was sighted doesn't mean something like this couldn't have occurred. And given the age of the ship, it's likely that she didn't have a wireless set ever installed, so even if she drifted for a month, it's very likely she could have been missed without any way to call for help. Maybe this led to something like the Mary Celeste occurring, where the crew left the ship in the lifeboats to try and set off and reach land, leaving the ship drifting empty until she eventually sank, perhaps in the same storm it was suspected she was lost in. Who knows? Maybe they even had a worst-case scenario. Iceberg strike, cargo explosion all at once, or maybe just one of those. Maybe it was a storm. Maybe it was something else altogether. We just don't know and won't until we find the wreck, but this would be one that I bet is only found by sheer random chance if it ever is. Projects to map the entire ocean floor have been proposed, and if they ever come to fruition, I'm sure multiple lost ships will be rediscovered. But to this day, absolutely no trace of the ship has ever been found. Not even a lifebelt with her name on it. If her wreck ever is found, we might be able to learn what sank her, be it fire, iceberg damage, or something else. If she is found, as damaged as she might be, she might still bear the clues of what caused her fate. Where the ship is today, though, is likely a mystery that will never be solved. But who knows? Maybe one day she'll be spotted and found. And I think the lack of answers is also in part why the mystery has been forgotten. And why whatever fate befell this ship on the icy Atlantic Ocean has been possibly lost forever to knowledge, along with the fates of those she was carrying. Unlike Titanic, there are no incredible stories to be retold over and over. For Augsburg, there's just nothing. It's like she was never even here. She is out there somewhere, though, a rusting wreck forgotten on the ocean floor, waiting to be found again. It's interesting that something mysterious like this happened only 2 months before the Titanic sank, and continued to play out during and after she sank, but it's never talked about. Why some ships are forgotten and why some are remembered is just a fascinating thing to me. Some of the forgotten stories are just as mesmerizing as the famous ones. I wonder if this mystery would be more well known if the Titanic hadn't sunk around the same time, or if it would have still faded into obscurity. It probably would have. The fact that Titanic never did either was kind of an anomaly in and of itself. But in this hypothetical scenario, I would say the mystery would likely have been more of a sensation at the time. Maybe something more along the lines of the reaction to the Waratah disappearing in July 1909. Either way, I'll continue to tell the stories of the famous and obscure, and I hope you'll stick around to listen to them. Maybe this mystery will be solved one day. Who knows, maybe her wreck will be found in a very unexpected place, and this story has a few twists we don't know about yet. With the unknowns, anything could have happened. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this story, and in the meantime, that's gonna do it for this video. So thank you for watching, and have a good one, everyone. And tell me what you think happened to the ship. Other than those rambling guesses and theories I suggested, I have no real idea. I'd love to know what you all see as being the most likely scenario, though. So let's discuss this mystery in the comments.